I am standing in front of my house on a quiet autumn morning. The leaves are turning gold and red, and there is a gentle breeze carrying the smell of fresh coffee from my kitchen. This house is mine. Every brick, every window, every inch of the small garden belongs to me. It took me 6 years to get here. 6 years ago, I had nothing. The people who were supposed to love me the most took everything away. So, how did I end up here? Last week, those same people called me begging to move in. I said no. Before I share what happened, let me know where you are watching from today. Drop your location in the comments. If this story resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Now, let me take you back 6 years to explain why I refused to open my door for them. My name is Stephen, and I grew up in a small town in Ohio. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where Friday nights meant high school football games, and where families stayed close for generations. My father, Richard, worked as a manager at a local manufacturing plant. My mother, Patricia, was a nurse at the community hospital. We lived in a modest 3-bedroom house with a big backyard where I spent most of my childhood. I have an older brother named Derek. He is 3 years older than me, and growing up he was everything I was not. Derek was the star of the family. He excelled at sports, especially football. He was popular in school, always surrounded by friends, always the center of attention. Teachers loved him. Neighbors praised him. My parents adored him. I was different. I was the quiet kid who preferred computers over football. While Derek was out winning games and collecting trophies, I was in my room learning how to code, building simple programs, reading books about technology. I had few friends, and I was comfortable with that. But my parents never understood me. I cannot count how many times I heard them say things like, "Why cannot you be more like your brother?" Or, "Derek never gave us any trouble. What is wrong with you?" It was not that I was causing problems, I just was not Derek, and in their eyes that was a failure. I tried so hard to earn their approval. I got good grades. I stayed out of trouble. I helped around the house. But nothing was ever enough. Derek could do no wrong, and I could do no right. That was just the way things were in our family. When I turned 18, I left for college. I studied software engineering at a state university about 4 hours away from home. It was the first time I felt like I could breathe. Nobody compared me to Derek. Nobody made me feel like I was less than. I worked hard, earned my degree, and landed a job at a tech company in Columbus. At 26 years old, I met Lauren at a company party. She worked in marketing for a firm that partnered with my company. She was beautiful, with bright eyes and an easy laugh that made everyone around her feel comfortable. We talked all night at that party, and by the end of it, I knew I wanted to see her again. We dated for 2 years. Those were some of the happiest times of my life. Lauren made me feel seen. She made me feel valued. For the first time, I believed someone loved me just for being me, not for who they wanted me to be. When I proposed, she said yes without hesitation. Our wedding was small but meaningful. We held it at a local venue with about 50 guests. My parents came, though they spent most of the reception talking about how Derek was doing great things with his new business venture. I did not mind. I was used to it. What mattered was that Lauren was now my wife, and we were starting our life together. A few months after the wedding, my parents approached us with a suggestion. They said their house was too big for just the two of them, now that Derek had moved out to pursue his business. They invited Lauren and me to move in with them. We could save money on rent, they said, and eventually use those savings to buy our own place. I was hesitant. I knew living with my parents would not be easy. But Lauren thought it was a good idea. She saw the financial benefits and convinced me it would only be temporary. So we packed our things and moved into my childhood home. From the beginning, I contributed significantly to the household. I paid for most of the utilities and groceries. When the roof needed repairs, I covered the cost. When my mother wanted new appliances for the kitchen, I bought them. I never complained. I thought I was investing in my future, in our future. For the first year, things were relatively peaceful. Lauren got along well with my parents. I kept my head down, went to work, came home, and tried to be a good son and husband. Life was not perfect, but it was stable. Then Derek came back. He showed up one evening with a suitcase and a defeated look on his face. His business had failed. He had lost everything and needed a place to stay while he figured out his next move. My parents welcomed him with open arms, of course. They did not even ask me how I felt about it. Derek moved into the spare bedroom, and just like that he was back in the house. At first I told myself it would be fine. Derek was my brother. Family helps family. But something changed after he arrived. Lauren started acting differently. She became short-tempered with me, always finding reasons to criticize. She spent less time with me in the evenings, saying she was tired or had work to catch up on. I noticed that she and Derek talked a lot. They would be in the kitchen laughing together or sitting on the porch having conversations that stopped the moment I walked outside. I told myself I was being paranoid. They were just getting along as in-laws should. There was nothing more to it. But deep down, something felt wrong. I just could not put my finger on what it was. The signs became harder to ignore as weeks turned into months. Lauren started coming home late from work, always with an excuse about client meetings or project deadlines. I believed her at first. She worked in marketing, and I knew her job could be demanding. But the late nights became more frequent, and her explanations became less convincing. One night I woke up around 2 a.m. and found her side of the bed empty. I walked downstairs and found her in the living room, her face illuminated by her phone screen. She was smiling at something, typing quickly with her thumbs. When she saw me, she jumped and quickly put the phone away. "Who were you texting?" I asked. "Just a coworker," she said. "Go back to bed." I wanted to believe her. I really did. Derek's attitude toward me changed too. He started making comments about my job, about how software engineers just sit at computers all day. He joked about my appearance, about my clothes, about the fact that I did not work out like he did. These comments were always made in front of my parents, and they always laughed along with him. I waited for my father or mother to defend me, to tell Derek to stop. They never did. Instead, they joined in the teasing as if putting me down was just harmless family fun. I felt like a stranger in my own home in the house I was helping to pay for. One evening, in late spring, I finished a major project at work 2 days ahead of schedule. My manager told me to take the rest of the day off as a reward. I decided to surprise Lauren with a nice dinner. I stopped at the grocery store, bought ingredients for her favorite meal, and headed home early with a smile on my face. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed that all the cars were there. My parents were home. Derek was home. Lauren was home. I walked through the front door quietly, planning to sneak into the kitchen and start cooking before anyone noticed. That is when I heard voices coming from the living room. I stopped in the hallway, hidden from view by the wall. My mother was talking to Lauren. Their voices were low but clear enough for me to hear every word. "You need to be careful," my mother said. "You cannot let Stephen find out that the baby is Derek's." My entire body went cold. I could not move. I could not breathe. I stood there in the shadows, my grocery bags still in my hands as my world collapsed around me. "I know," Lauren replied, "but what am I supposed to do? Derek does not have any money. Stephen has a good job. He is stable. If I leave him now, I will have nothing." "Then do not leave him," my mother said. "Just let him think the baby is his. He will never know the difference. He is not smart enough to figure it out." They both laughed. I do not know how long I stood there. It could have been seconds. It could have been hours. Time had lost all meaning. The woman I loved, the woman I had married, had been sleeping with my brother, and my own mother was helping her hide it. I stepped out of the shadows and walked into the living room. The looks on their faces when they saw me would have been satisfying if I was not drowning in pain. Lauren's eyes went wide. My mother's mouth fell open. Neither of them said a word. "How long?" I asked. My voice was steady, but my hands were shaking. Lauren started crying immediately. "Stephen, please, it was a mistake. It just happened. I did not mean for any of this to happen." "How long?" I repeated. She looked at the floor. "About 8 months." 8 months. They had been carrying on their affair for 8 months while I went to work every day, paid the bills, and slept next to her every night believing she loved me. Derek walked in from the kitchen. He must have heard the commotion. When he saw my face, he did not apologize. He did not look ashamed. Instead, he shrugged. "She deserves better than what you can give her," he said. "She deserves a real man." I looked at my father, who had followed Derek into the room. He stood there with his arms crossed, saying nothing. He did not defend me. He did not condemn what had happened. He just stood there like a statue. "Dad," I said, "are you going to say anything?" He shook his head slowly. "This is between you and them. I am not getting involved." My mother stepped forward. "Stephen, if you had been a better husband, this never would have happened. You were always so distant, so wrapped up in your work. Can you really blame Lauren for finding comfort somewhere else?" I stared at her in disbelief. My wife had cheated on me with my brother. She was pregnant with his child, and my mother was blaming me. "I want Lauren out of this house," I said. My father finally spoke. "This is our house. We decide who stays and who goes. I have paid for half of everything in this house for the past 2 years. And we appreciate that," my mother said. "But Lauren is carrying our grandchild. She is staying. If anyone leaves it, should be you." I looked around the room at the 4 of them. My brother, who had betrayed me. My wife, who had lied to me. My parents, who had chosen them over me. I was surrounded by family, and I had never felt more alone. That night I packed everything I owned into 2 suitcases. I loaded them into my car along with my laptop and a box of personal documents. I had about $4,000 in my savings account money I had been setting aside for a down payment on a house. I drove away from that house at 11:30 at night with no idea where I was going. I was 28 years old, and I had lost my wife, my family, my home, and my faith in the people I loved most. The first few weeks after I left were the darkest of my life. I could not afford a decent apartment on short notice, so I spent 3 nights sleeping in my car in a parking lot behind a 24-hour gym. I showered at the gym, changed clothes in the bathroom, and drove to work pretending everything was normal. Eventually, I found a cheap room for rent in a rough part of town. The building was old, the neighbors were loud, and there was a leak in the ceiling that dripped every time it rained. But it was a roof over my head, and I was grateful for it. My work suffered. I could not concentrate. I made mistakes I never would have made before. My manager pulled me aside and told me I needed to get my act together, or I would be let go. I promised to do better, but inside I was falling apart. I started drinking. Not a lot at first, just a beer or two after work to take the edge off. But the beers turned into whiskey, and the whiskey turned into a nightly ritual. I would sit alone in my tiny room, staring at the wall, wondering how my life had gone so wrong. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Lauren wanted half of everything I had. Her lawyer argued that she was entitled to spousal support because she had become accustomed to a certain lifestyle during our marriage. The irony was almost funny. She had been sleeping with my brother the entire time, and now she wanted my money too. In the end, I lost about $15,000 between legal fees and the settlement. It wiped out most of my savings. I was starting from below zero. The turning point came about 3 months after I left. I was sitting alone at a coffee shop near my office, staring into a cup of cold coffee when someone sat down across from me. His name was Marcus. He worked in a different department at my company, and we had exchanged maybe 10 words in the 2 years I had been there. But he had noticed that I was struggling, and unlike everyone else, he decided to do something about it. "You look like someone who needs to talk," he said. I do not know why, but something about his straightforward honesty broke through my defenses. I told him everything: the affair, the baby, my parents taking their side, sleeping in my car, all of it. When I finished, Marcus did not offer empty platitudes. He did not tell me everything would be okay, or that I should forgive and forget. He just looked at me and said, "That is terrible. You did not deserve any of that." It was the first time anyone had said those words to me, and it meant more than I can express. Marcus introduced me to his neighbor, an elderly woman named Clara, who lived alone in a large house about 20 minutes from the office. Her husband had passed away 5 years earlier, and her children lived across the country. She had a spare room she was willing to rent out cheaply in exchange for help with yard work and occasional errands. I moved in the following weekend. Clara was kind in a way that reminded me of what I wished my own mother had been. She cooked extra food and always invited me to join her for dinner. She asked about my day and actually listened to the answers. She never judged me for what had happened. Living with Clara gave me the stability I needed to start rebuilding. I stopped drinking. I started exercising in the mornings before work. I picked up freelance coding projects in the evenings to earn extra money. I enrolled in online courses to get additional certifications that would help me advance in my career. Every month I put whatever I could spare into a savings account. Sometimes it was only $100. Sometimes it was $500. But slowly, steadily, the balance grew. After 2 years, I got a new manager named Nathan. He was different from my previous boss. He noticed my work ethic and my skills. He promoted me to a senior position with a significant raise. For the first time in years, I felt like I was moving forward instead of just surviving. I kept saving. I worked extra projects. I lived frugally. And 4 years after I had driven away from my parents' house with nothing, I had enough for a down payment on a home. The house I bought was nothing fancy. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a small backyard in a quiet suburban neighborhood. But when I signed the paperwork at the closing, I cried. Not from sadness, but from pure, overwhelming joy. This was mine. I had earned every square foot of it. I spent weekends painting the walls, planting flowers in the garden, and making the space my own. Clara came over often to help decorate. Marcus and his wife brought housewarming gifts. I hosted small dinners for my new friends, and the house filled with laughter and warmth. I finally had peace. While I was building my new life, I heard occasional updates about my old family through mutual acquaintances. Lauren had left Derek shortly after the baby was born. She had met a wealthy, older man and decided Derek was not good enough for her anymore. Derek was left to raise the child alone while working unstable jobs. My father, Richard, was laid off from the plant where he had worked for 30 years. The company was downsizing, and at his age he struggled to find new employment. My mother retired from nursing and their income dropped dramatically. Derek had borrowed money from multiple sources to keep up with the mortgage payments, but he could not keep up. The bank sent foreclosure notices. They were about to lose the house. Then, one evening, about 3 weeks ago, my phone rang. It was my mother. I almost did not answer, but something made me pick up. "Stephen," she said, her voice trembling. "I know we have not talked in a long time, but we are in trouble. We are losing the house. We do not have anywhere to go." I listened without interrupting. "We heard you bought a place of your own. We are so proud of you." She paused. "We were hoping maybe we could stay with you for a while, just until we get back on our feet." A few days later, Derek called too. For the first time in his life, he apologized to me. He said he was sorry for what he did with Lauren, sorry for the way he treated me, growing up, sorry for everything. He asked if there was any way I could find it in my heart to help the family. I took a deep breath before I responded. 6 years ago, when I had nowhere to go, none of you cared. You chose the people who betrayed me over your own son, your own brother. You told me to leave. You watched me drive away with nothing, and you did not lose a single night of sleep over it. I kept my voice calm. There was no anger in it, just truth. I built this life from nothing. I worked for every single thing I have. This house is mine because I earned it with my own hands, and I cannot open my door to the people who slammed theirs in my face when I needed them most. I hung up the phone and sat in silence for a long time. I felt no guilt, only freedom. I will not pretend that refusing my family was easy. The first few nights after that phone call, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, questioning my decision. A part of me, the part that spent my whole childhood trying to earn my parents' love, wanted to give in. Maybe if I helped them now, they would finally see my worth. Maybe they would finally love me the way I always wanted. But I talked to Marcus about it. I talked to Clara. They helped me see the truth. Setting boundaries is not cruelty. Protecting yourself from people who have hurt you is not revenge. It is survival. I started seeing a therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Patterson, who specializes in family trauma. Through our sessions, I began to understand that my worth was never dependent on my parents' approval. I had spent my entire life trying to be good enough for people who were never going to see me clearly. That was their failure, not mine. I learned to forgive myself for trusting the wrong people. I learned that love should not come with conditions and criticisms. And slowly, the weight I had been carrying for years began to lift. Today, I am 32 years old. I have a job I am proud of, and colleagues who respect me. I have a small circle of friends who are more like family than my actual family ever was. Marcus and his wife come over for barbecues in the summer. Clara still visits regularly, and I help her with her grocery shopping and doctor appointments. I have not started dating again. After what happened with Lauren, I needed time to heal before I could trust someone with my heart again. But I am not closed off to the possibility. When the right person comes along, I will be ready. I am just being careful this time. On weekends, I work in my garden. I planted tomatoes this year, and they are actually growing. I read books on my porch in the evenings. I cook meals for my friends and fill my home with good conversations and genuine connection. I heard that my parents and Derek had to sell the old house. They moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment on the other side of town. Derek works part-time at a warehouse. Lauren never came back. My parents' health is declining. When I heard this news, I did not feel happy, but I did not feel sad either. I felt nothing. Their situation is the consequence of their choices just as my situation is the result of mine. We all built our own paths, and now we are walking them. The biggest lesson I learned through all of this is that family is not just about blood. Family is the people who show up for you, who support you, who love you without conditions. Ba Clara, who took me in when I was broken. Marcus, who sat down with a stranger and offered kindness. These people are my family now. I also learned that it is okay to say no. You do not owe anyone unlimited access to your life, especially if they have shown you that they do not value you. Boundaries are not walls meant to punish others. They are fences meant to protect what you have worked so hard to build. And sometimes losing everything is the best thing that can happen to you. If Lauren and Derek had not betrayed me, if my parents had not thrown me out, I might have spent my whole life in that house paying their bills, seeking their approval, never knowing what I was truly capable of. They meant to break me. Instead, they set me free. I am sitting on my porch now as I finish telling you this story. The sun is setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I am holding a cup of coffee, and there is nowhere else I would rather be. I used to think happiness meant being accepted by the people who were supposed to love me. Now I know that happiness is accepting yourself. It is building a life you are proud of. It is being at peace with who you are, even if others never understand. If you are going through something similar, if you have been betrayed by people you trusted, if you feel like you have lost everything, I want you to know that it is not the end. It is the beginning. You have the power to rebuild. You have the right to choose who gets to be part of your life. And sometimes the strongest thing you can say is simply no. So let me ask you this. Have you ever had to set a difficult boundary with someone you loved? Have you ever had to walk away from people who were supposed to be there for you? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. We are not alone in these experiences, and sometimes sharing them helps us heal. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to hit the like button. It helps more people find these stories. And if you have not already subscribed to the channel, so you do not miss future videos, share this with someone who might need to hear it today. Thank you for spending this time with me. Whatever you are facing right now, I hope you find the strength to protect your peace and build the life you deserve. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next story.